International Anti-Corruption Day, the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime is meeting with officials of the Federal Ministry of Youth Development to unveil a strategy that will increase the involvement of young people in the fight against corruption. The theme for this year's commemoration is Uniting with Youth Against Corruption, Shaping Tomorrow's Integrity, and this necessitated the need for the launch of the Youth Help Desk initiative.
Our recent national corruption survey reveals encouraging signs of progress. An impressive 70% of Nigerians, including our youth, have refused to pay bribe at least one occasion. This statistic is not just a number, it represents a growing culture of integrity and resistance against corruption.
The Minister of Youth Development laments the statistics of young persons denied justice in the nation's corrections facilities and highlights efforts by the ministry to address the issue.
Young people face systematically delay in getting justice and growing involved in the youth criminal activities. A large numbers of our pensioners are under the age of 35. They're in the prison, and many have been in jail without trial for years.
He also announced a setup for Youth Help Desk as a platform for youths to report cases of corruption and seek help.
We have made up our mind to close the gap in establishing the first step of it, which is the Nigerian Youth Help Desk. It is a platform where they can report cases of corruption, seek justice, and receive help in whichever areas, just to make them live a decent life.
The Help Desk platform comprises several initiatives designed to reach young people across all states, including the Federal Capital Territory, to promote awareness on the ills of corruption and the need for young Nigerians to be part of the solution. Benny Ark, Channels Television News.
All right, welcome back to Sunrise Daily. So those are some of the issues we'll speak about and a lot more on the program here today. So we're joined with Mr. Cheikh Toure. He is the representative of United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime here in Nigeria. Bonjour, monsieur.
Bonjour. Bonjour.
That came from nowhere. I didn't plan that.
I believe that's where it will end.
Don't be surprised.
That shouldn't be surprised, okay.
Expect the unexpected. This is flow like that.
If you say so.
Good to have you on today.
Thank you for having me.
You're new in the country. I mean, well, technically, because you've been here before, but so far at the moment, 6 weeks. So how's that turning out for you?
Well, excited to be back in the biggest country in Africa, but in a land filled with good innovation that can propel Africa to sustainable development. There are good solutions, and I love Nigeria jollof.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for that.
It's a good thing you say that,
very well.
because you know when you come from Senegal,
yeah, you're like,
are the original owners of jollof.
Yeah,
that is a very, very kind compliment. Thank you. I hope the Ghanaians did their hats out on that one.
Oh, they have no choice. So far, your stay has been, you've been enjoying yourself here.
Yeah, getting accustomed. Trying to have the pulse of the country, the pertinence of our programs, looking forward on how UNODC can be better equipped to provide its technical assistance to Nigeria, expecting to do more work at the state level, because it's not only at the federal level that our work is needed. We are needed to do work at the local government level, at state level, and of course continue the effort that we've been doing for the last 20 years with the federal government of Nigeria.
So how has your work been so far? I mean, yes, there's a current report, but in terms of your experience carrying out your duties, how has that been turning out for your office?
Well, the office is not just the rep, and we have huge numbers of colleagues who are Nigerian and who have been quite at the forefront of bringing innovative ideas, aligning them with our technical menu of services to provide well-needed technical assistance to Nigeria. The small touch I brought in was to look at a vision I have, which is how under my leadership we can align and talk the walk when it comes to gender parity and gender mainstreaming in our work. So I developed a gender vision, which is basically the UNODC Country Office of Nigeria Gender Vision, which basically call on all program managers to look at the key indicators I set myself and make sure that gender issues are mainstream at the operational level, at the planning level, but also targeting them within our technical capacity initiatives.
Let me ask you this before we just come on to this. You've been around the world. I mean, in Africa and also here. What is it that you see that seems to serve an impediment to unleashing the innovative and skills and technical qualities of Africa's young population? What is that thing that we need to address to ensure that we unleash them to the world?
Well, I think that being myself an African, from Senegal, grew up in Senegal, had my studies in Senegal, but then further my studies elsewhere. I think we have a very creative, brilliant youth community. About 70% of Africa's population, West Africa population, is comprised of youth below 30. But again, issues that are systemic impede them to blow. And this is maybe one of the key elements that government need to take care. The future belongs to the youth. Yeah. Okay? Us at the age we have today, you know, maybe doubling our age might be challenging. So our impact will be what type of legacy should we leave to the children, to the youth, so that they can have better prospect than we did. And education is one of them, providing them health care, but also exposing them to the high areas of higher growth economically, like the creative industries, the agribusiness or digital world, and ensuring that the basis of government also is proactive by providing those skills. You see, when I was studying back in the US, a number of Africans, brilliant, they were there, and the dream was to come back, contribute. But then you choose an education field. When you're ready, you will see that it doesn't exist yet in the continent. So that adaptation, flexibility, agile absorption of those skills is quite important. And the only country I've seen a number of really good ideas in its initiative by the youth for themselves is in Nigeria. Wow. Look at the Afrobeat industry, the music industry, the cinema industry. It is everywhere broadcasted. So there is an influence also of Nigerian way of life to the rest of Africa. You go to South Africa, Zambia, or you go to Tanzania, I think by Cote d'Ivoire and Senegal, there is disconnection. And I think that we should harness those skills to the benefit of development, attaining the sustainable development.
That's our soft power, you know, permeating many other parts of Africa, not just the West African region, but I think more powerfully felt in the West African region. What I would like to know, though, I mean, is how that power can also be leveraged. Because here we are, you are heading the United Nations Office on Drug and Crime. And that is one area where we're not doing so well. In the stats, you know, looking at how we're combating drug and crime. It looks like the more we're fighting it, the more pervasive it is. I don't know, how do you see your assignment? Because you have talked about how you want to see gender mainstreamed in almost every area. Why do you think that, it is important to have that gender mainstreaming in the fight against, leading countries of drugs and crime?
Because simple reason that I think the world has been ruled for many years by men, and you see the situation. And from our standpoint, removing my hat as a UN, but just being an African, when you invest in a woman, okay, the whole community feels it. And actually, the evidence of the survey shows that women are less inclined to take bribery than men.
Is that still the case?
Yes. Well, again, I will repeat myself. Maybe those respondents did not have the exposure in public service, which highlights a systematic problem where maybe we need more representation of women in public service to have an equal analysis of that element. But again, we have seen a number of great leaders around the world, among which some Nigerian spearheading some of the top chair institutions in the world. And they are doing a great job. So this is why I think it is important to have a gender dimension to what we do. But again, for proven record of efficiency as well, because it's not just coming from a wishful thinking, but facts are real. Second point, just to talk about the drug issue or the transnational organized crime. I mean, it's Africa is huge, and Nigeria is the biggest nation in the continent. But look around you. You have only Francophone speaking countries.
Yeah.
And I think going forward, strengthening regional coordination and collaboration, putting ahead the border issues with communities that live along those borders will make a more peaceful West Africa sub-region, a more peaceful Nigeria, and more exchange of best practices. And I think this is where we have to put our heart on to say, okay, maybe the solution is not looking upward to the north, but we just have the solution right on our left or on our right, and fostering that cooperation with those countries at the highest level to combat transnational organized crime, drug trafficking, and ensure that this infrastructure upgrade that we are seeing in Africa, where today my shipment left Cote d'Ivoire 8 days ago, it's already in Abuja. The fluidity and the investment in corridors should also be used for development, trade among us, but also has to be done in a very safe and secure manner for our population. And the youth also, they have a very big role on that.
So what particular areas do you intend to focus on? I mean, you've spoken about drugs, transnational crimes, which sometimes also involved endangered animals, which is another area that the UNODC has decided to take on, corruption. And I know that the UNODC has been playing a great role empowering some of our security agencies, training them, making them more responsive, etc. What areas do you intend to focus on, apart from gender mainstreaming, of course?
Of course.
In your tenure as the UNODC chief?
We'll continue to do what we are doing now, just to to highlight some few big programs we have. We have programs in the Northeast because of the terrorism movement. We have a huge portfolio on justice. And just recently on the Human Rights Day, we had the first ever chess tournament between inmates and guards. And we had the honor to have Toure, the Nigerian chess master. Exactly. So we'll continue to do that, because what I feel is that we need to go away with theoretical practices to look at more impactful initiatives that when you report on it, you can see that it has changed something. It has changed the narrative. And that's what I will be looking at doing with my team. We have a numbers of programs on wildlife and forest crime. But again, as I say earlier, I see myself trying to do initiative with our mandates at state level.
At state
going
level?
Down to state level.
Okay, to the states.
Because the responsibility is not just the federal ministries or the federal government to fight corruption or to fight transnational organized crime. They've been doing very well. And actually, numbers of their international commitment are fulfilled. But the problem is, how do you trickle down those to state level, to local government level? Because those who are suffering from transnational organized crime or drug trafficking, drug abuse, they are part of our communities. So the communities also have a role to play, and this is why we will look at expanding our partnership with civil society organizations, women initiatives, youth initiative, and looking at how to really ensure that those policies that are existing do work.
All right. About this, your national survey on corruption, I see where you spoke about 70% of Nigerians, including youth, refuse to pay bribe in one occasion.
Yes.
Talk to us about this.
Well, I think that's an indication. But just before I tackle that question, you see, Nigeria is among all countries around the world very advanced in this, because they have conducted a survey which is experience-based survey. It's not perception.
Okay.
In 2014, 2019, and 2023, and also in addition to this, all the peer review mechanism under UNCAC, the UN Convention on Anti-Corruption, had been conducted. So there are significant efforts from the federal government to fulfill its obligations on the issues of international instruments. Now, when it comes to this perception, I think we can look at it with two levels. That people are aware because of the prevention campaigns, but I would be inclined to say, just like me, people are fed up and asking for more accountability. And I incline to be more on that second point. And youth currently, because their future are robbed by corruption, because 1.26 billion US dollars paid in cash for bribery, which is 3% of the GDP, is a huge amount that can be using as a catalyst to ensure that the youth have economic opportunities for a better future, instead of getting swallowed by criminal organization or doing some unethical activities that later affect the credibility of the country.
All right, I'm going to take you to Lagos. Our colleague Ayo's got questions for you as well.
Well, thank you, Chamberlain. Well, one can't remonstrate the importance of what you're doing, and also underscore that it takes courage to even be able to put out this kind of data, particularly at this time. But to the question that Chamberlain asked the other time about 70% of Nigerians, of citizens refusing bribe, it's also striking to notice that in that same report, the refusal rates are highest in the northwest of Nigeria at 76%. Yet, the data we have says that that's the part of the country where poverty is highest. So it raises questions as to exactly what is the motivation for corruption, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, should I come in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think that the motivation for corruption comes in different shapes and form. Usual citizens are facing public offices, maybe in 4 levels of services. You have the health sector, education sector, and then interaction with law enforcement, but also other health sectors. And regardless of how a place is poor or not, again, people can use their offices to basically ask for bribery. And I think that's the main point. What are the mechanisms that can be put in place to dissuade that the poorest are the ones that are paying the price of corrupt behaviors? And I think that's the question that we all need to ask ourselves. Because if my child is sick or need education and I have to pay a bribe to ensure that he has equal footing, and I'm in a poor community, well, I will look for other means to collect that funds, maybe through completely illicit means. So I think that we need to look at the complaint mechanisms. We need to look at the pertinence of the policies, and this is why I say precisely that action is not just seated at the federal government. We need to go at the local government areas. We need to go to the state level, because Nigeria is a federal state, and everyone need to put hands on deck to ensure that this menace of corruption is eradicated. At least it will be diminished to better capture the potential of Nigerian population.
You know, there's something that I say sometimes, that the people who are in government today, who are in positions of authority, not just government, who are in positions of authority, whether in public service or private service, they were not in that position 40 years ago. So it raises the question of how it all came to be. So looking at your data again, I'm looking at the exposure by age groups. And I'm looking at the one that says that youths between ages 18 and 24 face slightly lower bribe prevalence compared to middle-aged citizens. That's at today, or at least as at the time of this reporting. 30, 40 years from now, what are the things that you feel need to be done to institutionalize anti-corruption, particularly among the younger generation today, so that 30, 40 years from now, we're not struggling with this same problem?
That's a good question. And I will just repeat what I told the youth during our anti-corruption event with the Minister of Youth at the UN House. And I gave the example of the trust-based societies. I'm sure most of you know certain countries have this trust-based society. New Zealand is one of them. Austria is one of them, where basically you are not to be reminded that you have to pay your ticket or you have to behave a certain way when you interact with communities. And numbers of us, we do behave very differently when we are at home in Africa than when we travel. And I'm sure that most of us here have taken the plane where we saw unruly behaviors at the airport. But as soon as the plane lands in those trust-based society, people aligned as if they were trained. So basically, we have aptitude to have ethical behaviors and to ensure that we are aligning with the best behavior that combat corruption. And I think that we just need to foster it with our youth so that what they see or what their obligation of the parents also at home is engaged. And I think that we need to listen to the youth. We need to bring them in the decision-making process as well and engage them as champion of these changes.
Very interesting. But, you know, there's something that your report said about concerning the insights of decentralization, and you talked about going to the states and the local governments. Isn't that a potential solution? Is that a potential solution? Or could it exacerbate corruption by creating more layers of bureaucracy?
I don't think that corruption is a bureaucratic thing. I think it's a behavioral thing. It's an ethical thing. Completely. I don't think that it's even some of the it's a thematic area because it impedes development, right? But we all have a religious background. We have values. And we have to go back to those value system and not look at it as, you know, a programmatic approach. And when I say that we need back to local government, because they do have a responsibility. The first to have a connection with the population is at the local government before it ends up in any minister's desk. Okay? And this core accountability also need to be reflected in the entire system, from the minister down to its employee, to the governor down to the police officer at the market, but also the responsibility need to be engaged at the community level with the head of communities, the head of families, but also the children at school. And I think that this is what we're talking about when we say that we need to ensure that the information get down to community level and to state level, so that basically we don't see the problem not being tackled from different angles.
Just one last one from me, and I hope you would be able to take this within the time we have. So this report focuses on bribe refusal somehow. So does this focus unintentionally ignore the citizens' motivations for paying bribes willingly? For instance, maybe the efficiency or fear of retribution?
Well, I think that there has been a clear methodology established by the National Bureau of Statistics of Nigeria, and it is based on the best practices around the world. And there was a steering committee, there was a governance body that looked at all elements and those questions that was included in this report. And I think that maybe what can be done in the fourth round of survey to take on your suggestion to look at more the motivation. But I can just, with the time that is left for us, to tell you that, you know, we have seen also increased prevalence of bribery act from the private sector. From 2019, it was at 6%, with an exponential increase up to 14%. So basically, it is not only in the public sector that this act happened, but also in the private sector, and it has been highlighted through the report.
So what's your advice in terms of how we should address global factors that contribute to corruption? Probably tax haven, illicit financial flows, and things like that.
Well, I think that first and foremost, you know, this complaint mechanism need to be maintained, improved, using the tech-savvy use to ensure that there is an integrity into the complaint mechanism, but also the response, because more you reestablish the confidence with public officials, with the system, more people can come to reclaim their rights. The second element is that investment on educating people about what is their right, about what they should do, need to be at the center of the education system. Now, tackling the issues of illicit financial flows and anti-money laundering is a different concept of corruption in our work. This is the proceeds of crime or the illicit acquisition of wealth. And there are numbers of programs that UNODC is running to ensure that, first, law enforcement institutions are well equipped to identify, investigate, prosecute and adjudicate financing of terrorism. And there are certain normative elements that have been put globally for people to respond on illicit transactions. The second element is international cooperation. And this is why I'm saying this. Today, you will see criminal networks are very savvy. They are 10 steps ahead of law enforcement. Today, if we are not working on an integrated approach in Africa, any criminal can say, okay, I'm going to do the crime here. I will go and invest at the neighbors next door, because maybe international cooperation will not happen at the speed of things to happen. And this is where we are promoting also to have this dialogue among West African countries. Just yesterday, we concluded a 3-day discussion where I brought 10 African countries in Nigeria to discuss about joint operation, how we can focus our attention on all this investment that is done to improve trade. Remember, Africa only trade at level of 5% internally, and we need to increase that.
Wow.
So there are a lot of opportunities to make money. Look at the increase in population, agro-business. Those people need to be fed. And I think that this is where we need to really put those reflections points, so that at the government they create an enabling environment and people also play their role. Because if there are rules, those rules are to be respected. And if they are not respected, the entire system collapses.
All right. We'll anchor at that point. Interesting. I think we should have a lot more of this moving forward. But thank you for coming on, Mr. Cheikh Toure, representative of UNODC, and all the best to you at the team.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Business Morning comes up now.